And how have you found, like, you've become something of like a public figure and like in promoting these ideas, right? And so that's like the opposite of like your book in that you're not retreating, you're like advancing, right? Um, and so like what has that been like for you? Yeah, like do you worry about, do you feel it has corrupting effects? Do you worry about that? And also do you have advice for other people like me in the same situation of how do we avoid being corrupted by it if it's corrupting?
You know, what's funny about it is that I actually have not been particularly anxious or particularly worried, despite the fact that it's exactly the kind of thing that used to torture me and that drove me out of the profession into the monastery, whenever that was, now almost 10 years ago. Um, and I think the reason for that is that um, I don't think I'm really promoting myself. So I think the order, at least so far, it could change. I could get corrupted and it could lose some of my project could lose its current luster. But you know, I use my charm to point to something else that has nothing to do with me. Um, I'm using my status as an educated person, as an academic, as a smart person, as a person who can use words. I'm using that to draw attention to something that really doesn't have anything to do with me. It's this practice of thinking, of reflecting, of reading, of it's a dimension of humanity which it's something I have some experiences connected to, which is why I can testify to it. But it doesn't belong to me in any more than it belongs to anyone else. So that's, I think, some of my book is mistaken for being a call for a certain kind of purity, and it isn't. Uh, what I'm interested in is not purity. It's not that somehow all of my competitive impulses and all of my ambitions and all of my vanity has disappeared. Of course not. I'm the same hyper competitive, very vain person that I've always been, but the order is changed. So I have an
Mm,
end in view to which those things are subordinate. By the grace of God, and may it stay that way. So that's the important thing. It's not purity, it's that there are different motivations and they can have a different relationship to one another in oneself. And one wants to try to get that orientation right. And there's not any fixed advice for that, there's no recipe. Um, it requires uh, really serious introspection. I mean, I can't recommend that everyone go spend 3 years in the desert wrestling with their soul. That's Some people can't do that. They've got kids, for instance. Um, but it's we need to know that's what we want, and we need to try to find ways within the lives that we have to find the right orientation and to recognize it when we see it. So that's not really very good advice, but at least it's a kind of vision of how I think things might look.
mm. Do you see promoting the intellectual life as like one of the things in your book that you think we shouldn't make the intellectual life instrumentalize it. We shouldn't instrumentalize it for economic or social ends. And I just wonder how you think about the promoting of it. Like, you're promoting in public ideas about what education should be, you said, right? Um, and like, is that itself intellectual activity? Like, is the promoting of it the intellectual life? Like, how do you understand the activity itself?
Um, it's totally not intellectual life. In fact, it's I find it more and more difficult to actually think about things. So uh, it's only the past couple of weeks. Our semester ended in December. Then I crashed for a couple of weeks, and I've actually started thinking about something for the first time in probably a year. Um, so that's, I think, probably the danger of this kind of thing is that um, if I were to keep going at the pace I've been going, uh, I would no longer be an exemplar of the thing I'm promoting. I will
Mm,
forget what using your mind is actually like. I will become someone who moves around words in public spaces, and, and that would, I think, be bad. I think that I want my experience, I want my actual life to be a continued source of the kinds of things I'm saying in public. That's definitely a danger that I've already run into, and that it's going to take some serious work to try to figure out how to avoid in the long term.